And 3, 2, 1. And it has been a few weeks. I can't even remember the last time we recorded, but welcome back to another episode of the Amazin Citi. I want to say episode 55. I
I
don't know
think our
why it's a number in my head.
I think our last record was the one where the file deleted off my computer, so we had to redo it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was probably
Something like that.
something like that. I don't know.
Not
Time
my
is
proudest moment.
the days just they blend together at this point. How we're already in the middle of February is beyond me. Um,
You know what that
but
means? That means you know what today is.
you know what today is?
Pitchers and catchers.
That's right. That's
Spring
right, buddy.
training is underway.
That's right, buddy. And in lieu of yesterday being Valentine's Day, you could say you love to see it. You really just love to see it. You
You're
love
in
to
love
see,
with the scenes.
I mean, the scenes, the vibes,
You
everything
love them.
about it. You just love them. You love seeing Buck's stupid face talking at the press conference. You love seeing Verlander and Scherzer throwing side by side. You love everything about what's going on right now with the New York Mets. You really do. So let's start off a little bit with a couple things that you're looking forward to seeing. That's something that you would love to see this 2023 Mets team do.
We're going right into it.
We're going right into it. Why not?
That's true. We never usually do that. 3 things I would love to see this 2023 team do. I think the easy number one is hit more homers.
That'd be great.
I think
You
that
would
was
love
kind
to
of
see it.
the big knock on the Nets all year last year was, you're not getting a lot of power output. You're getting out homered by the Braves in Atlanta. The series you're getting swept. Like it was a big and worthwhile thing.
Yep.
It was a reasonable concern, and it turned its ugly face.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, number one is hit for more power. Number two, give the kids a shot. Like I've been big on this train for a while now that not even proposed before we knew Steve Cohen would go to unknown heights for a payroll. I proposed for a bit that you might have to take a year where you are letting like Alvarez, Beatty, Peterson, like you're letting them learn on the fly.
Mm.
I mean, maybe not as much Peterson because he's done it in stretches before, but like Alvarez, Beatty, Vientos, you're learning on the fly. But that being said, that kind of pushes Vientos out of the way for that, and Peterson as well. But Francisco Alvarez and Brett Beatty, I would love to see them get legitimate run this year. Because
Mm-hmm.
if they're getting legitimate run this year, they are doing something right. I mean, we know the Mets will give Narvaez and Nito both every shot before turning to Alvarez.
Right.
Because that would mean having to dump one of them off the major league roster. That's obviously something the Mets aren't going to want to do. So you think either they'd have to be historically, like, catastrophically bad, or Alvarez is just that damn good, and I'm willing to bet on the second one being far more likely than the first.
I mean, they sit through. I mean, granted, an injury plague, but they gave James McCann as many opportunities and at bats as they possibly could last year. So I think that goes to show that even if they are catastrophically bad, they're still willing to give them a chance and play 3 or 4 times a week as long as their defense holds up. And you feel like Tomas Nido has a Gold Glove finals last year. His defense is going to hold up. One of the reasons why you're bringing in Omar Narvaez is
His
maybe
defense.
his defense is there. He's not the 19-20 home run guy that he was a couple years ago with the juice ball, but his defense is there. His fundamentals are there. His leadership skills are there. That's another reason why they brought him in is for that leadership for a guy like Alvarez and the Kevin Paradas of the world. And I mean, hell,
Well,
that's why he's here.
and you're bringing me into my third thing I'd love to see, and we're already seeing it, is some of the veterans taking the younger guys under their wings. I mean, I think SNY put out the video a couple days ago about Eduardo Escobar saying that having the chance to teach and mentor Brett Beatty and Mark Vientos is the most important thing he's had the chance to do in his career. This man has played in the playoffs. He's played on good teams multiple times through his career. He was on good Arizona teams. He's on good Minnesota teams. I think he's on the team that broke the record for single season team home runs.
I think so.
I mean, he's on a great Mets team last year, and like you'd think like that September run he had was the most important thing he's done in his career, but
It's
no,
all-star games. Like you
he's
think
saying
at
that.
some point that would mean something, but yeah, to your point.
But this is to him the most important thing he's ever done in baseball, and that's something you love to see because I think you see a lot of sports where sometimes the idea of putting the younger guy under your wing isn't as universal. Like I think it was Ryan Tannehill who straight up said his job is to not teach Malik Willis anything.
Right.
Granted, that might be better for Malik Willis's future, but like to say that to a member of the like to say that in like a press scrum
Yeah.
is wild. Like
Bull.
that's bold. That's nuts. Like that freezing cold takes account on Twitter is gonna have a field day with that one when they cut Tannehill in favor of Willis.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
to see a guy who's not to say he's on the roster fringes, but he was a non-historic September away from probably being on the roster fringes.
Mm-hmm.
To know that he's basically grooming his replacement, but for him to be able to take that in stride and knowing what that means to the organization, it's just you love to see it.
I mean, forget
But
about
those
being
are
on
the
the
three
roster
things I would
fringes.
love.
He was one clean MRI away from probably being a Miami Marlin. Let's call it as it is. If Carlos Correa were here
A lot has
with this
broken.
team, he's not with this team.
I mean, if I asked you in mid-August,
Yeah.
you know, but let's say like we're looking at where Escobar is.
Right.
I
This
ask
is
you to
late
put
August when he's probably hitting like 225.
yeah, and his OPS plus is probably like in the 70s.
Right.
And I'm asking you to put a percent on the chance Eduardo Escobar is the opening day third baseman in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing what this is when Brett Beatty had just gotten promoted to AAA.
Right.
And it seemed like Escobar was going down the craps. And if I had told you, and also in the winter, Carlos Correa is going to be willing to play third base for the Mets, you're putting them at like 2%.
Until
Like
the
he
Correa
needed
part, it would have been higher, but if
he needed a historic run to end the year,
yeah,
and Correa's medical's failing to be the opening day third baseman, and he's still willing to pick up the guy in line behind him.
and that's the best thing about this guy. He's not gonna.
Seems like a phenomenal
He
person.
probably won't be an all-star again in his career, but and
He
he's not
might
gonna
not
hit
be a
30 home
starter
runs.
again in his
He may
career
not.
after
Yeah,
this year.
right. But and you look around sports, there's always a cliche of a glue guy and the guy that's keeps the locker room together when things aren't going great, or just you need to keep the spirits up, keeping everyone's head high, and teaching the young guys. That's what Eduardo Escobar is. That's why he's still on this team as well. He's like he's going above and beyond to pretty much give Brett Beatty his job. Right? Like that's essentially what this is. This guy is taking a young guy under his tutelage, showing him the best how he could be the best major league that he could. I love to see it. I love to see it.
Well, what
I
are
really
three
do.
other things you'd love to see?
Oh boy, so you gave some good ones. I'm afraid to just go chalk here. But I will say I would love to see the young guys getting some run. This is something that we've said the entire offseason. We want to see Brett Beatty, whether it be left field, third base, a DH spot, whatever it may be.
You
I
and I
would
have been
love to see Francisco Alvarez trying to get as many opportunities as he can. I know Tommy Pham is kind of taking that spot for the first part of the season for a little bit. It seems like Alvarez might start AAA now, but I would love to see these guys get some run. I would love to see Bryce Montes-Diaca try to get some serious leverage roles out of the bullpen because his stuff is stupid if he just can control where the baseball is going and stay healthy. That's someone who I'm really keying into onto this year. Last year was Drew Smith. He's still my guy. It's always going to be Drew Smith's season. This year, it's Bryce Montes-Diaca for me.
You and I have been pretty in unison on our desire for the young guys to get some good run.
Right. And because
that's something we've harped on this show.
Because you see the talent, you see the promise and the upside, you see the potential that these guys can have. And let's face it, you can't have a $450 million payroll every single year. So at some point, you're going to have to reset. And how do you reset? You have to get these young guys, the guys you're paying pennies on the dollar, some run. That way you can afford having these guys and Lindor and Scherzer and Verlander, because you can't have this payroll every year. The penalties are going to be too much.
No, I mean, and it's the Dodgers model. You pay top end guys top end money, but you are more than able and capable to produce back end of the roster guys yourself.
Right.
I mean,
if you
they're paying Chris Taylor how much money now?
Right. They're paying like $65 million.
And all the money they paid Justin Turner, but those are guys they found that were back end guys.
Right.
The dogs agree with me if you can hear them. Like,
and like another thing is, right. Let's just say a couple weeks ago, I was probably all on the Ohtani's coming to the Mets train, but then I saw how the Dodgers are handling their team. Ohtani's going to be a Dodger. I feel very strongly at that point. So if you're going to be, getting the Arenados or not Arenado, you're getting the Machados, or you're still going to try to maintain this payroll. Guess what? You can replenish your system by letting Brett Beatty get 350 at bats, have him mash, and then maybe trade him for a stud arm. I don't know. I don't want them to trade him, but if you're going to have Manny Machado for the next 6 to 8 years, do you need Brett Beatty? Probably not. So yeah, that's my one thing. Get the kids some run for so many different reasons for your future. Number two, I would love to see them no hit Philly again. it's I don't care for Philly. I enjoy seeing them lose. That Super Bowl was fantastic. The way that they lost was mwah, chef's kiss. I mean, just absolutely 5 billion level IQ stuff from Joe Shane, trading Kadarius Toney to the Chiefs and letting Bradbury go to the Eagles because both of them screwed the Eagles in the Super Bowl. So well done to the Giants front office. Yeah, I like seeing Philly lose. So if they can no hit the Phillies one more time, that'd be pretty sick. Another 7-1 comeback in the ninth inning, that'd be cool. Just beat the piss out of Philly, that'd be great. I would love to see that.
The losses, some of the losses that the Phillies take from the Mets, there's got to be a word stronger than demoralizing.
Oh man,
but I can't. I whatever that word is fits perfectly here. I mean, a
yeah,
7-1 comeback, getting combined no hit, like in the Canna 2-homer game after the Gene Segura go ahead homer.
yeah.
No, their best wins come against the Phillies.
Yeah,
It's been that way for
sure
a while.
I would love it. And the first one, I'm going to go real chalk here, especially because you took the other one of more power production. Win the damn title, win the NL East, win a World Series, win. I would love to see the Mets win in 2023. Steve Cohen said when he first came here, I want to win in the first 3 to 5 years that I'm here. Guess what, Chief? It's year 3. He said it himself. The window is closing. Why not win now? Why not start here?
No, I
You have
mean,
the roster for it. You had the roster for it last year. You arguably got better.
you're
Use
giving yourself
expectations.
a 3 to 5 year window. Year 3 starts today.
Yeah.
Year 3 starts today, February 15th.
Right here, right now.
2023. Pitchers and catchers report to Mets camp today.
Yeah.
It starts now.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, you could argue this is the most important season in Mets history.
Yeah, and you know what? Going back to the end of this end of 2022, we said it. You harped on. I agreed with you. It was the most important offseason. Guess what? They hit a home run. They knocked it out of the park. Now you're going into potentially the most important regular season of your franchise's history. Let's see what you do. Let's see if you can live up to the same expectations.
Yeah, I don't think the Mets have ever been in a spot, arguably ever, where it's World Series or bust.
Right.
Like the
Maybe
69 team was
2006.
true, maybe. Like the 69 team was playing with house money.
Sure.
The 86, even just the teams in the 80s, everyone loves to point out, and it's correct, that if there was expanded playoffs like there are now, or even just playoffs proportionate to the amount of teams in the league, the Mets would have made the playoffs 3, 4, 5 more times in the 80s. So it's not like
Those
they
were
had a
good
short
teams.
window.
Those
Those
were
were
good
good
teams.
teams. 83, 84, 87. Like those teams make the playoffs. 85 especially. I mean, 2006, yeah. But I mean, you can even just ask, like they were good and contended in 07 and 08.
Yeah.
But it was never like, all right, well, if we don't make the playoffs in 06, we're fucked. Like, no, they just blew it out their ass 2 more years. I mean, even in 2015, 2016, like I don't remember anyone being like, man, this Mets team 2017, it's been one of the most embarrassing seasons in team history.
Yeah, 2016 was a big year because coming off the World Series appearance, they added a little bit. They got better on paper. They thought, okay,
No, I mean, you
maybe this
brought
is a year.
Cespedes back, you bring in
Yeah.
Walker and Cabrera.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, all right, now we're gonna have a full season healthy of Syndergaard, DeGrom, Matz,
It didn't work.
Harvey. No, it just didn't work. But
And
I
then
mean,
you got mad bummed. You got mad bummed in the wild card game.
yeah, I mean, you could argue this is the first year. Like, it's hard to look at the year over year trajectory of what the Mets are right now and just
Right.
have any sort of clue.
Right.
because half this roster will be gone this time 2 years from now, if not more than half, probably
Right.
more.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, unless you're banking on going out and signing big name dudes every year, which is fine. And if
Which
they
they'll
do,
try to do, but
right, and if they do become some sort of like sunset destination type place for older arms that are still effective, I'm cool if several Hall of Fame pitchers come in right off into the sunset in Queens. That's
fine by
fine
me.
by me.
As long as you're still producing.
But it's hard to think about the year over year trajectory of the Mets because
Mhm.
I'm not sure there is one. I don't think you can make one.
Right.
Because it's not like, all right, like it was like after 2019 where you're like, we have all this young talent. They are all under contract
Mhm.
through arbitration. Like we have all the complementary pieces we need. We're missing a big arm and a big bat. Like that really, like you have those guys like, all right, well, Escobar, Canna, all these guys are up at the end of the year. Most of these relievers are all free agents or trades, and they're all on the like it's the oldest roster in baseball
Right.
after
Right.
being the youngest roster in baseball not too long ago.
Yeah.
It's incredible. But just the fact that there really is no long-term trajectory for the Mets is nuts. And I'm not, but it's like I'm not sure it's a bad thing. Like I
No.
can't sit here and say, all right, if they don't win it all this year, we've got like another 3 to 5 year window. You assume the Cohen way of owning this team.
Cohen's
You
wallet is
think
going to
that
keep the
gives
window
you
open.
a window that never ends. But it's not like, all right, we have DeGrom, Syndergaard, Wheeler, Matz, and Harvey all under contract for a bare minimum 3 more years.
Mhm.
Like they're gonna be back.
Right.
Like everyone was saying after 2015, like I mean, it's one of the worst things you can say about a sports team because it
Oh,
never
they're
comes to
going to be
fruition.
back. Yeah.
They're going to be back. Guess what? The Bengals haven't been back. They weren't back this year. The Bengals didn't go back. That Mets team never went back. The 2015 Blue Jays, 2016 Blue Jays, those Blue Jays teams never got back to the ALCS.
Mhm.
The Guardians never got back.
The Cubs haven't gotten back.
Oh, at least they went out on top.
But
In
they won,
theory,
but
yeah. I mean, like
the
even like
49ers
some of
haven't gotten
those,
back, although I think I have feelings about the 49ers.
yeah, but like even like sticking to baseball, not to get you riled up,
Yeah.
but like looking at like those Diamondbacks and Rockies teams that were like, all right, good young talent prospects on the way. They
Yeah.
never got back. Story left in free agency. Arenado got trade was they paid the Cardinals
They're
to
still
trade for
paying
Arenado
they're
from
still
them.
paying the Cardinals to have Arenado not play for their team.
Yeah, like Brendan Rodgers never panned out.
They had a good year
Dave,
last year, but
yeah, but like David Dahl fell off the face of the earth.
yeah.
Charlie Blackman got old.
Yeah.
Like, but the
Ryan
Rockies are
McMahon
supposed
had
to
a
be
down
back.
year.
The Rockies were supposed to get back and they never did.
Right.
I mean, who's to say that? Like,
Remember the
I even
expectation
remember
that the
like
Reds had in like 2019 when they paid all that money to people?
like the 2021 Red Sox get to the ALCS. All right, well they'll be back. Like, just bring back Schwarber, lock up your homegrown guys, and you're back. They didn't
Yikes.
lock up the homegrown guys.
No.
They didn't lock up Schwarber.
Now they locked up Devers, but they listen.
After you let Bogarts walk for nothing,
They had to keep Devers. If they
it
didn't
would have been a
retain
mutiny.
Devers, oh my God.
If they didn't keep Devers, they would have been crystal clear that ownership cared more about the Penguins than they did the Red Sox.
Yeah.
But it's just like you can't look at this Mets team and be like, all right, well, they'll be back. Like, you know, like this is a building thing. Like the Dodgers, it was like 2015, they lose in the division series, 16 championship series, 17 the World Series. You know, it's like all right, they're building, they're gonna get there. Like it's clear as day.
Right. Because the difference between the Dodgers and the other teams is just like the Dodgers have been in the postseason every year for the past like 12 years, something like that. As opposed to all the other teams that we've mentioned, they had like one postseason appearance where they were probably playing over their head and got there a little early. And then it's just like, oh, they'll be back, they'll be back, they'll be back. And then they never make the postseason for another 6 years.
They never got back.
They never got back.
I mean, what was everyone saying about the Hawks?
Oh my God.
The Hawks will be back. They haven't gotten back.
No.
So I mean, it's we weren't planning on debating this. This
No,
was
we
not
weren't.
on our
This is
docket.
this,
But this will be the
just
most
how-
important thing we talk about this
how
episode.
things go. Yeah.
Are the Mets a World Series or bust team? Given their current roster construction,
I think it's hard to argue that they're not.
I think you have to say yes, just given that Escobar, Canna,
Listen,
Marte, a lot of the
I think
complementary pieces
I think
are getting
regardless
older.
of who's on the roster, it could be us on the roster starting the opening day. As soon as you see how high their payroll is, if you're approaching $400 million, if you're setting a record for highest payroll,
You have to win.
you have to be a World Series or bust team. You have to be.
When was the last time the Mets? Is this the first time you make the argument for 06?
Yeah.
And I see that. But I think a World Series or bust team, the way that we're looking at it now, as in payroll and age.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't just bring in aging guys who are on the ends of great careers, whatever. You brought in Hall of Famers,
right,
who have won rings, who are trying to go out on top one more time. I mean, you brought in Peyton Manning.
Right.
I mean, that could be like what Max Scherzer is to
Justin Verlander to a Peyton Manning comparison. You know
no,
what?
I'm going Max Scherzer to Peyton
You're going
Manning.
Scherzer. See, I was going Verlander because obviously Verlander's the new guy here, and he could have been that quote unquote missing piece.
I'm going Scherzer because I think Scherzer will be a Met longer than Verlander.
So you think Scherzer's back next year? Because Scherzer could
opt out. But no one's paying him 40. No one's paying him 40 million.
You have to be a sociopath to opt out of $43 million.
No, I mean, it took the Broncos until Manning's last season, which he was not that good, to win a damn ring.
Yeah, but then you had the greatest defense in the 21st century.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
It took as long as possible. And then in the very end, it wasn't even him that got it done.
Right.
I could see a world where Scherzer is not great this year, but 25 other dudes pick it up.
Listen, if he's not great, now we're saying not great as in he's pitching to like the level of a back end rotation guy, or just not great to Max Scherzer standards, because those are two.
He's closer to like kind of
things.
like he's like somewhere between like a Bassett or a Walker from last year, like a mid rotation guy. Like, you could easily convince me that by the end of the year, you're looking at like Verlander and Senga as a 1 and 2.
I could see it being a possibility, but I need to see what Kodai Senga does first.
Yeah.
No, I'm not gonna give him the reins over that. And also, we see how this organization appreciates a track record of things. So I think they're going to give Scherzer the benefit of the doubt before they just, even if Senga outperforms him during the course of the season. I think we're going game 2 of a playoff series. You're going Scherzer over Senga.
I mean, I think that's.
I mean, damn, they started Darren Ruff in a playoff game.
Well, I'm going to say, like, they didn't start Jacob deGrom game 1.
That's because of how the rotation lined up.
Sure,
they wanted to. They lined up the rotation initially so deGrom could pick game 1 of a DS. Yeah, but because they didn't win one freaking game in Atlanta, they had to pitch him, and he had to pitch game 2. But I see what you're saying. What you're saying.
I mean, I think there's a chance that it's by the end of the year, like, he's closer to Quintana than he is Verlander.
Man.
And that, but the thing is, that might even be the worst thing in the world. I don't know. I think the Mets are the most World Series or bust team in baseball. And this might be one of the biggest World Series or bust teams in baseball history. Like, you're thinking of just going balls to the wall, stupid money.
And you know they're going to try to make something at the trade deadline.
They might just, like, if San Diego's starting to fall apart or they're not doing great, I can see a world where AJ Preller is like, look, I'm going to lock up Soto. Manny, I know you're not coming back, so we're going to let you get a jump start and go somewhere else. If Ryan McMahon's putting up a monster season, you can't tell me the Rockies aren't going to want to sell high on him.
I was going to say, would they really trade him after giving him a lot of money? But it's the Rockies. Of course they would. They have no idea what they're doing there.
Absolutely.
They have no idea what they're doing. Or, speaking of also with the Rockies. Also with the Rockies, I'll give you an under-the-radar option for them. I would take CJ Cronin in a second. I know his splits are bad, but his splits against lefties hold up.
It's funny you say that because I was about to go into the crazy takes I asked people for. So thank you for giving one of your own. I'll read a couple.
Yeah.
Because for some reason my Zoom account's being weird and we now have less than 10 minutes.
Okay.
Chris Bello says the Marlins will improve their 24-40 record in one-run games and will make a National League wild card.
They will improve. They will absolutely not make the wild card.
I think their rotation would have to pitch to a combined sub-3 ERA.
Right.
And their offense would have to hit like their 20th percentile outcome to do
Because yesterday the Pacoda projections came out. They're projecting them at 75 wins or something like that. First of all, that's not even sniffing a wild card spot. They will get better. Their pitching's great. Their offense still sucks. You brought in Luis Ariz, but much like the Mets, they didn't need average. They needed power. Luis Ariz is a very good hitter. He's gonna hit like 7 home runs.
He's just a bad fit for that team.
Yeah, continue.
Here's probably the worst
Plus,
one.
you have your entire infield playing out of position.
Here's easily the worst one.
Okay.
Timilo Castro. It's
Okay.
back because it started with a guy this time in the minor league deal. Will end up having an OBP over 360 when given a chance, and completely replaces Daniel Vogelbach. There's no correlation between Timilo Castro and Daniel Vogelbach.
Oh boy. So you know what? I could see his on base being over 360 if he has like 12 plate appearances. He's not replacing Vogelbach.
Here are two really interesting ones.
That's
And
just
they're
not
from
gonna
separate
happen.
people.
I love it. Let's go.
One is David Robertson will be released before the end of the year.
No, he
And
won't.
the one right below that is Bryce Montes de Aka will be the primary setup man by the end of the year.
You see, I like that one. It's not going to happen, but I
But
like
you
it.
would think there would have to be direct correlation between Robertson and de Aka.
Yeah, like if Robertson
Just blows,
doesn't get an out,
regresses.
like what was the guy's name? Oh my god, he was pictured for the National a couple years ago. He went like 3 weeks without recording an out. Oh, I can't remember his name. But like it has to be that sort of thing over a 4-month span for David Robertson to get cut. That's just not going to happen. Bryce Montes de Aka, I think he could be a 7th inning guy by the end of the year.
There's a lot of Kodai Senga outperforms Max Scherzer in here.
Yeah.
But then right below that, Kodai Senga's game will not actually translate to the major leagues, as well as many hope. He'll end up being outperformed by Jose Quintana and potentially Carlos Carrasco.
See, that I see being more realistic.
I think there's a chance it takes him a bit.
Sure.
The question is how long?
Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it takes a little bit to translate into the major league level. It's just something that happens. And let's not forget, he's also pitching with kind of a bum elbow. So it's possible. I don't think he's going to outperform Scherzer just because I'm not going to do that to Scherzer yet. But I could see if certain dominoes fall into place, he could be outperformed by Quintana or Carrasco.
This is probably the most freezing cold take I've gotten, considering this is not a hot take at all. Carlos Carrasco will be replaced by Peterson or McGill at some point during the season.
Oh, I mean,
isn't that
even
almost
just
the
for maintenance,
expectation?
does that count?
Isn't that almost the expectation? Like they do what the Rays did and they with Rich Hill, flip him with the deadline to someone who needs a starter and then give the younger guy a chance to fill in while also getting something for an expiring contract?
I think it depends on what they're trying to go for at the deadline. If they're trying to get another expensive contract, then yeah, Carrasco's out the door.
Well, not even just contracts. Just like if you know you're not bringing Carrasco back and McGill, Lucchesi, or Peterson has you to the point where you believe confidently that you can fill them in, flip them. Do what the Rays did. The Rays flipped them, got something from the Mets. You never know. Baltimore's gonna be desperate for pitching by the deadline. Carrasco would be like their ace.
Yeah, he really would be.
Ronnie Mauricio, starting third baseman by the end of the year.
No.
I'm
one of the bigger Ronnie guys that I know. It's not going to happen.
Nimmo puts everything together and will have his best offensive season. OPS near or at 900.
What was it at last year?
Low 800s. I want to say like he didn't even hit 810. I mean, he was playing hurt for a while. And he really kind of stopped.
Well, his problem is he just wasn't hitting for a whole lot of power. How his OPS last year is 800 on the nose. Yeah.
I'll go with 3 more.
Okay.
The Mets will retire Rusty Staub's number 4.
I could absolutely see that happening.
That feels like a very Steve Cohen thing to do.
Sure. I want to say he'll retire David Wright's number first, but Steve Cohen he does like the history of the team.
This is more of a combination of multiple takes. Darren Ruff will have a bounce back year.
No. No, it could happen. It could happen.
And this is one all-in-one for my man Will. Will says Brett Beatty will be an all-star. Vogelbach will hit 30 home runs and Ruff hits 300 in his platoon. I think the least unlikely there is Vogelbach hitting 30 homers.
What were the
He did
three?
it. Beatty's
So
an
Beatty
all-star.
All-Star. Okay.
Vogelbach 30 dingers. Ruff
Right.
hits 300.
I mean,
I mean, Vogelbach hit 32 in the juiced ball year, playing full time.
listen. Also, because it's a pretty clear DH platoon split, it's just not going to happen. Even with the changing of the shift rules, he's not going to do that. Darren Ruff has never hit 300, so he's not going to. I
He
think
might have in his platoon, to be fair. I think his really good year with the Giants, he might hit 300 something against lefties. I lied. I have one more.
Okay.
Francisco Alvarez forces the Mets' hand, and they have to carry 3 catchers.
I think that's what you want.
That's what we were saying earlier.
That's going full circle. You would love to see it. You would love to see that happen. If Francisco Alvarez just absolutely mashes the baseball, which is absolutely possible. We saw him do it last year in AAA and AA, wherever he was. That's something that's absolutely a plausible thing that could happen in 2023. He was the number 1 overall prospect for a reason. He's a top-rated catcher for a reason.
He's still
His
a top 10
hit tool
prospect
is
in baseball.
stupid. Yeah. You hope that he forces him at hand and makes him carry 3 catchers. He takes him at bats away from Tommy Pham. He takes him at bats away from Omar Narvaez and Tomas Nido. That's what you want to happen. You're hoping for that.
Yeah. The last thing we should touch on is that Keith Hernandez gets his new deal with
back.
SNY.
You'll love to see it.
The Wilpons had one more chance to fumble it. They almost did. I give them credit. They stuck to their brand.
They tried.
I don't know how much longer they have SNY before
He's Keith Hernandez
tries to buy it.
You can't keep him away.
Like, can you imagine a world where the Mets just retire this man's number?
Right.
And the Wilpons are like, nah, man, fuck you.
Yeah. And like, I just can't picture this booth without Keith Hernandez. I love all the guys at SNY. But like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna have Gary Cohen, Ron Darling, and like Todd Zeal. Todd Zeal's done a nice job, but he's not Keith Hernandez. It definitely won't be Anthony Recker.
No. And for certain reasons, I'll end that conversation right there.
Yeah.
And we'd be remiss to not shout out Kevin Burkhardt.
KB.
Phenomenal call.
William Patterson's finest. What a guy. He did a great job. I'm so happy for that guy.
No, and I think I was the most interested. That's the part of the game I was the most interested in. Well, it's because I'm a big football fan, and the football and all that, and it's fine and great. But the human interest side of Kevin Burkhardt going from where he was 20 years ago to now,
is selling cars,
selling cars and calling high school football.
Yeah.
And now he's calling the Super Bowl.
And I don't know if you saw this one story.
He's about to start calling games with Tom Brady a year from now.
Right. So when Greg Olson was in high school, Kevin Burkhardt was calling his high school games. And now they called a freaking Super Bowl together. That's awesome. That's such a cool story. I'm so happy for those guys.
Just phenomenal stuff.
Yeah.
Well, like we said, spring training begins today. We will keep you covered. I'm sure I'll be down there soon for whatever reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be down there in St. Lucie a good amount of times this summer. Get excited, guys. Hey, go check it out. SMI released their game schedule today for an MLB TV subscriber. As long as any team is broadcasting the game, you get it. Marlins don't do a lot of games, so you won't see a lot of Jupiter unless it's from the Cardinals. But for Antonio Slater, it's Jack Ramsey. Like, comment, retweet, subscribe.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for listening to the Amazin Citi. As always, LFGM.
LFGM.